Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into yet another special. I guess we're just special, Neil.
Yes, we are. We are very, very special.
As you had mentioned before we went live, we're the variety performers. We give you everything that is to do with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes.
Indeed, we are. Indeed, we are.
This is what we're going to call TEPc Spotlight. We're going to spotlight different interesting members of the community. This is going to be a YouTube special that we'll post periodically. And we definitely look forward to bringing you more of these. But ladies and gentlemen, this individual was brought to us by a good friend by the name of Dolemite. As of this recording, he has taken the top spot in Division 1 Kyber, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row. He is reviled by some, but he's praised by others. This Pacific Coast GAC mastermind impressed Neil and I to no ends with the details of his preparation, which you're seeing right over there, right, Neil?
Yep, that's correct. It is slide streaming there.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't see my thumb. There.
And we'll get into those crazy little doodads that you're seeing over there in just a moment. But he prepares for each match, and his due diligence to making the perfect slim roster knows no bounds. Live via Zoom right now. This is the second time we've had to record this, but we'll talk about that later. From Seattle, Washington, presented to you uncut, except for the commercial break, we give to you Bus 74. Welcome, Bus. How are you?
Thank you, Paul. Doing great.
No, it's not Bus 74. It's Bus the Rich Froning 74.
Rich Froning? Who's Rich Froning?
We did oh my God, you've got a brain like a sieve sometimes. Rich Froning is the fittest man in the world. He was the CrossFit champion 4 times in a row. 4 times in a row, and nobody has done it since. Matt Fraser has come close. Matt Fraser has done 3 in a row, but whether Matt Fraser matches Rich Froning this year, we don't know. So,
okay, well, yes, we did discuss this, but remember that was on the lost version of this.
Yes, but that doesn't give you an excuse to forget what I said.
Well, it sets me up for the joke that I made then.
But you've already told everybody that it's a second take.
Well, I know this, but they didn't get the joke the first time. I referred to him as the Joey Chestnut of GAC.
And he prefers mine than yours. Don't you, Bus?
Yeah, what Joey Chestnut? That was the hot dog eating champion.
That's the hot dog eating champion. Exactly.
Hot dog eating champion or 4 times fittest man on the earth?
Initially, I was drawn to the Rich Fleming.
Rich Froning, he's drawn to the Rich Froning. But you've got to get that fourth one.
Well, I should say I was kind of mulling that, and we are talking about a video game here, so I don't know, maybe hot dog eating video game, both pretty esoteric sports,
Yes, pretty, yeah, they are.
See? I'm not that far off.
We really, really need to start bringing the tangent alert into this show.
No, we don't. Let's talk about you, Bus. Let's introduce, before we get into the nitty gritty of everything, let's introduce our viewers and our listeners to who you are. As I mentioned in the beginning, you have won the very top spot in Division 1 Kyber 3 times in a row. Is correct. Have you always been in Division 1?
Nope. I was in the last 3 GACs. I was in Division 1. Before that, I was in Division 2, and prior to that, I think I started in Division 3 when GACs first came out.
So ever since you arrived at Division 1, you've taken that top spot?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I think a lot of people are glad we don't cover him on GA Center.
Oh yeah, it's shame you don't stream. If you streamed or posted your GACs, yeah, Although since we put new competitors that come into the league to a vote, whether you got voted into the league or not would be, it would be debate. Although I would argue that some people would want you there because they'd want to compete with the best.
Thanks, guys.
Claim to be the best if you don't compete against the best.
Boy, I don't know. I mean, I got a lot of respect for content creators who stream their GAs live. I don't know if I could do that. It might crimp my style. Have this camera on me while I'm trying to perform.
The camera would give you some performance anxiety.
Just a matter of multitasking.
Which note? Where's the notes? Where's the notes?
Yeah, he'd have to also read the chat and be friendly. Even though I can't imagine that he wouldn't be friendly. I mean, this guy's been awesome off the air and on the air.
Quite true. Quite true.
Oh, thanks, guys. It's fun working with you guys. I appreciate it.
So, we initially weren't exactly sure when you started when we did the first recording of this, and then unfortunately lost it to a power outage. But you were able to find out June 1st of 2017 is when you started playing. You're not a day one player.
No, but I've been playing long enough that I forgot when it was and all that. But no, I'm not day one.
Yeah, I mean, you've only been playing for 3 years. I mean, so to be number one where you are, obviously, if you were day one, I mean, your GP's what, 5 million?
Yeah, just a touch over 5.
See,
yeah.
if you had been a day one player, you could be, you could be 6.5, you could be 7. You might, if you were a day one player, you might have GLs by now. But obviously, because you've only started 3 years ago, your progression, farming, gearing, like everybody else, is obviously, a year and a half behind a lot of other people that played.
Absolutely. And, a big limit to my progression is that I'm free to play also.
What?
Oh, yeah.
I am free to play.
Wait. Okay, hold on. We have to do the validation because we do this anytime somebody claims to be free to play. Right, Neil?
Yes.
Bus, I'm looking you in the eyes, or looking at the camera, pretending it's your eyes right down here. Have you ever spent even a gift card that you were given on this game? Does your free-to-play card have a little punch in it?
Nope. It's golden.
Teflon laminated, buddy. Oh, yeah.
I have not accepted any game advantages that someone else paid for, and I haven't paid for anything I've paid $0 on Swuggo.
Good to hear, mate. Good to hear. Free to play all the way.
And honestly, I wouldn't want to accept something that gave me an unfair advantage, because to me that part of that challenge of not spending money is what has driven me to play this game.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask this, since you're free to play. Neil mentioned Galactic Legends. Have you been going after Galactic Legends? I mean, with number one in Kyber back to back, you have to have some, like probably a raid or something, don't you?
I don't have either Galactic Legend. I got Jedi Luke. He's no legend.
Yeah.
Apparently in this game.
Yeah, so because with you only being at the 3-year point, you will have just you were probably within the past few months at that getting JKL threshold. So you're in the position you're basically in a position now where you're making a decision as to whether or not you want to go slacker or whether you want to go raid. Because I'm guessing in the last 3 years that you've been progressing through all of the meta teams and maxing them out.
It's a factor. If I think other people who are free to play, who started at the same time that I have, like ones who are really dedicated, who decided to go after a Galactic Legend, they have been able to do that. So, but that's a factor, that I'm free to play and then I'm not a day one player. But also it's, decision making, and sometimes as free to play, you have to skip a meta. That's that. You counter it with what you got, and then you kind of wait until the next one comes around, and then you can hoard some resources and jump after the next one. And so that's kind of, you were asking me, I think I heard a question if I was going to go after a Galactic Legend.
Yeah, are you going to be going after any of them?
So it depends. I'm undecided. My strategy would be to hoard until I'm ready to pull the trigger. And that way I'm not committed. And I know that usually commitment is a good thing, but in this roster development is a major part of it. And committing before you do is actually a bad thing, because you lose options. So having more options, having more flexibility is a good thing. So that's my approach.
And it doesn't hurt that you have literally collected every other previous meta, and we know that there are counters to Ray and to Slacker if you use a mixture of the previous metas. If you mix gas with what, and if you mix the characters up, you can still achieve high finishes within Squad Arena, you mixing up the previous metas, can't you?
Correct. Yeah, you can do that with counters. My roster is pretty strong on Sith Empire. I've managed to use like my Darth Revan, Bastilla Fallen, +2 basically to counter gas. I've used him to counter mirror matches before then. I guess that's obvious. I'm using him to counter Ray right now. I haven't. I'm still working on the Supreme Leader Kylo counter. I think I need to make a Gear 13 tank for that. But then I need to remod.
Kryptonite right now?
Well, right now I'm not climbing all the way to the top of Squad Arena daily because of that, and I have been. It's just too painful, and even people with Galactic Legends, it's painful for them too. Like there's people down around rank 100 in my shard that it's a lot of, it's very thick with Galactic Legends even down at that level. So that's an advantage, I'd say. I don't know if my shard is more competitive or less than average, or I would think it's maybe on a little bit on the more competitive side, but gives me a lot of practice, to have people who are really good in a very active shard chat. So
what's been your rough position in the Squad Arena? So kind of like trying to work out what your crystal income is from a Squad Arena perspective. You've been playing for 3 years. How long was it when you started finishing in the top of your Squad Arena? Let's call it a 10 top spot. So you're making, either 3, 4, or 500 crystals a day.
I when we were chatting earlier, I remembered that I was able to counter Jedi Revan with my CLS Rebels. I think I actually may have been able to climb to the top before Jedi Revan came. I think when Chewbacca came out, Legendary Chewbacca, and certainly then when C-3PO came out, I know I was able, that's I think when I first started to be able to climb into those top spots, and probably when I got into the shard chat.
And you've
I
been
can't
there
remember
ever since? You've been there ever since? Yeah. So
yes, although kind of lately I've slacked a little.
So you might not get number 1, but you're finishing top 5 every day.
So up until last, I'm going to say month, kind of where I've been slacking, and honestly, like it's also a matter of kind of like game life balance, and also how much crystals do you have to spend to refresh, and how much time just to get whatever the rewards are. To me, it's not so much a status thing, or I guess now that I'm Premier Kyber champion of Division 1, maybe I feel, I've had thoughts, maybe people care about what I'm doing in my Squad Arena. But ultimately for me, it's always been just how much crystals do I have to spend versus what I'm going to get. That for me, that's the Squad and Fleet arenas have been that. So like if I have to spend a 100 crystal refresh, and at best I'm going to get 100 crystals, I might only do that if I'm going to value the experience, like, I get to get a little more practice doing this, and I want to. But otherwise, I know I know for a fact there's a lot of people out there that spend more on refreshing attempts and cooldown timers than they actually make. So that's not me. For me, it's all about just kind of economics.
So you make, as a free-to-play player, you do generate a decent crystal, or decent weekly crystal income, and that's why your squad is so good.
My squad is so good?
Sorry, your roster.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I mean that was a factor. For free to play. Yeah. And Fleet Arena, I was able to get into the top spot of Fleet Arena considerably before Squad Arena. And that was 400 crystals a day, often without needing to refresh, which is invaluable for free to play to kind of I grind their way up there, right?
I can agree with you there. One of my alt accounts gets #1 every single day, and I don't need to refresh. I do 1 battle a day, and that's it. I get the top spot because I have a 7-star malevolence. So I know what you mean, and that 400 crystal. So if you're getting 400 and roughly 400, so 800 crystals a day, you are definitely going to be able to spend to make a better roster. And obviously, clearly, you've been able to maximize on all of your meta squads.
So let's talk about that for a second. About maximizing your roster like you do. Have you always been this dead set serious? Did you research the game before you started, or have you come into being as serious as you played?
I think I read some app review, or someone was recommending the game, and I was just like, I'll try this. I like Star Wars, and I thought it was really cool. I didn't research it before I installed it, and I was kind of clueless in the early days. Like once I got level 40 or whatever it is, where you can join another guild, or where you can join your first guild. I was pretty clueless back then. I the guild was very casual. I wasn't on Discord. I didn't even want to touch Discord. I think I got. Maybe I went through 2 guilds before I got to my third that was needed Discord. So I finally crossed that bridge. And that was also around when we were, the third guild I joined, we just beat the Heroic Sith Raid for the first time together. So that was a fun memory. But no, I've kind of, I've always been a competitive person, but I don't know. It's hard to explain. Maybe I've gotten more competitive, or more capable. Also, as I've developed, keep grinding, keep developing this roster. Like I'm more capable, and so, I can do bigger things. And so,
there's a lot of free to play out there that would kill for your crystal income, and they would be. If I had your crystal income, I would do this to this team, and I would do this to this. Oh yeah, so much you can do with 800 crystals a day.
So, Fleet Arena is probably the best opportunity if I were to give advice to free to play.
Please,
100%
agree. We're all in agreement there.
Scream it from the mountaintops.
For me, the game transitioned to Fleet 2.0, which you guys might remember. It's where they switched from 5 starting ships to 3, and they added the reinforcement abilities, and they were all different. And I think some of the ships got mini reworks and whatnot, but
oh god, when Houndstooth first came out, it was trash, and Warrior absolutely trashed the ship. And within 24 hours, they redid his gear. They completely redid his mechanics within 24 hours of Warrior trashing that ship on YouTube. I remember watching the video. Because he'd wailed on, he went, "This is crap. This is absolutely horrendous. This ship does absolutely nothing." And it was reworked within 24 hours. And when he returned it back on, he was like, "Wow," And we all know what Houndstooth is like.
Well, Fleet 2.0, I'm going to say the Tarkin meta with Darth Vader starting, and I know, Darth Vader, the TIE Advanced X1, and I'm gonna say that. Death Trooper ship, I can't remember what that thing's called, but important part of that Fleet 1.0 meta. And I think that was weakened a lot when it transitioned to 2.0. So
yeah, I mean before 2.0, it was the window timeout team. It was the Mace window timeout team. So you would climb however
was that
high.
Was the one with Anakin? Jedi Knight Anakin? Because that was definitely 2.0. That was definitely more recent.
Yes. That was more recent. The window timeout team was before Houndstooth.
Yeah, that was like Ahsoka and
yeah. So I did Akbar, developed Akbar, and then Geonosians. What I did before Geonosians, but something Akbar, maybe just Akbar with Biggs and
probably
Wedge
Wigs and Biggs.
Probably Wigs. Yeah.
But I think
or Wedge and Biggs, not Wigs.
Well, no, Wigs is the nickname for the duo.
Wedge Biggs.
Wedge and Biggs. Wigs.
Yeah. So when it transitioned to Fleet 2.0, that was my opportunity. I viewed that as an opportunity to climb, higher than I ever had before, and that's how I did. I think maybe I invested in Sunfac considerably just before there were other Geonosian ships, just because you had that reinforcement ability. But does he stun when he reinforced? No, he can stun right out of the gate.
His special is a stun if the opponent is buffed.
What's his reinforcement ability though? Does he
I don't
stun
know,
whoever?
I use him on Malevolent, so I never
I know. I think he actually is a double stunner. So when you reinforce, he stuns whoever's targeted, and then he has his special ready to go to stun whoever's buffed. Mm-hmm. Right. So that was really like I worked that. So that was so. But anyhow, this is maybe that kind of dates when I started climbing on Fleet, but 400 crystals a day was great.
Well, what all we're trying to do in like this half is kind of establish, how long you've been playing, what your characters were, what your teams were, how you were able to climb, what squads were you using that kept you in the top of your squad arena shard, your fleet arena shard, how you were able to, generate such a high crystal income to then be able to work on a roster to get it to where it is today, making number one. And when we move into the second half of the show after the commercial break, that's when, we want to know what all this is about. How.
Well, let's get into your roster itself as it is today. What are your focuses? What are your loves? And let's also before you answer that, what your loves are today, what was your first love in the game when you initially opened it up and you're like, "Ooh, I like this character. I'm going to farm them."
I had a thing for Ashoka Fulcrum. I think she was the first Marquet event character that I was able to actually get. And I remember the only way I got enough shards that I could unlock her was that I could use the event given Ahsoka Fulcrum to beat whatever those rounds were to get the shards. So she was I kind of learned how to work her, and I thought she was like must be really great. She's this new character, and I got her. Other people, you can't farm this person.
Does she have the Zeta now, and is she relict?
She does have the Zeta. It's a little different now. It's I'd say what a regret actually.
Oh.
Although she's not that useful. Her Zeta.
You always I know lots of people that regret their first Zeta. I regret my first Zeta.
Yeah. And she's gear 12. I can't remember if I have gear 12 pieces. Maybe it's just gear 12.0, with Zeta. But yeah, it's
she's gold. She's gold.
She's gold.
She's gold. That's all right. Keep them gold.
She helped me get through the Galactic War table. I remember I would just use her the Retribution buffing move and the basic, and then she'd always keep protection up, and then with that Retribution she would counterattack, so generating more of the protection up, and so she could really help carry me through Galactic War back when I was doing that for the first time, before it was simmable.
Yeah,
all of my Phoenix are gold. all my Phoenix, they were my first that I wanted to take to 12.5 before 12.5 plus came out, if you will. They've just sadly fallen by the wayside because once Gear 13 came out, I went after Grievous because of the whole health boost and the fact that, you know, I knew we knew that dark side territory battles were coming. So I was looking for a way to kind of get a leg up on that whole thing, because I love my territory battles.
Yep, you gotta dump. I remember when there was a moment where I just had to dump my squad arena team, and it's kind of unsettling. So I'm going to switch to something completely different. Maybe it was CLS for me, and I did not get. I got him maybe the third time he came around. Yeah, that's a little, it's a little unsettling. Switching completely. You're developing one squad that's basically the only thing you've ever done in the game when you're young, and then okay, I'm going to switch to something completely different. I remember I had like the, Talia. Maybe when I dumped Talia and Royal Guard. Those really kind of early players that, at least when I was starting to play the game, these are like the ones that were easy to farm.
So what is it? What do you look like now? What's your focuses that you're going after, and to have your roster so slim, there has to be some major discipline going on.
Yes, I would say so. Yep. I'm pretty strategic on what upgrades I'll do.
So just a quick question. Obviously, you're 5 million GP, but we know that it's a very, very efficient roster. What factions don't you have? Instead of because whatever factions you do have are going to be, geared and modded. So what factions don't you have?
Just recently, I started developing the Resistance Brothers. So, I don't know if and they're not really developed yet how I want them. So, I do, but you were asking about faction.
Yeah.
I do
So
have
do you have Rogue
faction.
One?
My Rogue One's kind of weak.
Okay. Do you have Phoenix?
I should say I do have a Baze and Chirrut that are both pretty strong, but I don't want to develop my Rogue One any more than I have.
No worries. What about an Imperial Troopers faction? You got one of them?
Yeah, they're decent. They're useful.
Mm-hmm. Night Sisters?
For me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what other faction? Jawa, you got any teeny bomb?
I do. Yeah.
I'm
it's
fun.
fun.
I'm trying to put fingers up here for factions you don't have.
Jawas are fun, man. I'm really glad.
Where do you have those Jawas at?
I got Nebbit to G13.
Oh.
Love it. Love them.
So
okay.
So you've got a new teeny bomb that does not fail.
Oh no, they can fail.
Oh right, they do. Oh.
But they're fun. I for me it was like partly the theory crafting. Like, well, I don't think I've heard this anywhere on YouTube, but try running Watt with Nebbit and Scavenger. That's a good trio right there.
Is that for defense or for offense?
Defense. If you want to go after banners, you could use it versus, but there are definitely counters to it. But just for something that's kind of clever that. Actually, let me take a step back. So to counter geos, right? Let's say you want to do it without actually having a 5-man Jawa team where like a lot of them are lost, and so you get like kind of a poor score in a territory war situation. Try if you can bring Watt. He can put that taunt tech on Nebbit, and whenever Nebbit takes damage, because the scavenger is unique, the enemy who damaged him still gets the thermal. So with that sort of core trio, you can bolster that with like a Ewok Elder or maybe a Dengar to prevent stealth, from spy stealthing. You can put together a team that can counter Geas without any banner loss in a territory war situation.
Oh, it sounds like you're a little bit of a theory crafter. You need to have a conversation with It's Just Ian sometime in the not too distant future. I think a theory crafting session between you and Ian would be very interesting
for sure. For sure, the strategy of the game is always attracted to me about it. Kind of like chess, but more complicated. But a lot more complicated.
Brilliant. Okay, so we know what you've got. We know what you don't have, sort of. You seem to have everything.
Stuff I don't have Tuscan, although I did develop Shaman up to like Gear 8 really early on before my guild could beat the Heroic Tank Raid. There was some Phase 2 team there, but I abandoned him. But I farmed all their stars, so like if I have a Gear Horde, I could take them up really quick if I wanted to, but I don't.
So you're a territory battle officer's best friend, it sounds like.
I try to help my guild for sure. It's fun. I have fun with it.
Okay. Make sure that I don't try to poach him later.
Okay. No poaching.
Yeah. Part of my strategy, especially now that I have the crystal income to support it, is, I'll farm shards basically for everyone in an efficient way. And, so what I'm doing now is 10 sims a day on everyone. So I'll spend 25 crystals to refresh a hard node just once, and I'll do that every day. So that lets me progress faster than sort of a casual farmer that's just doing 5 sims a day. So I found that really helps me kind of jump on like new legendary opportunities, and the cost isn't that bad. Like, for someone with my crystal income, even though I'm free to play, I'm still got
You're
excess,
farming twice as fast as any other. Basically, for all intents and purposes, you're farming twice as fast as every other free-to-play player.
I would think so, or more, because some free-to-play players aren't doing any. I just focus on only one thing at a time. I can't possibly do more than one thing at a time. I can only do this one thing.
You have to multitask.
Today,
absolutely,
So with the release of the TIE bomber now being put into a dark node, once again, something else for me to farm on top of Cara Dune. So, my stun guns just went out the window.
Yep, I don't know if I'll have enough energy today because I already did my energy refreshes for TIE Bomber, so I think it's coming out of Cara Dune's budget. Sorry, Cara. Oh, that's something I don't have Mon Mothma. Or, I have her unlocked, but she's so whoever's brand new, you have to spend money on. I don't have, so I don't have Mon Mothma. I wait until they become farmable.
I would like to have seen them do that with the Sith Bomber because they did it. They did it with the Y-wing. They put the Y-wing with a new character on the same node. I think it. All right, fine. They've put him with is it I'm a Gundy?
It's either I'm a Gundy or Eth Koth.
They've put him with a Jedi. They've put the ship.
But they put him with the ship Jedi though.
I'm a Gundy's not a ship Jedi.
Then I think it is Eth Koth. I think I looked at it.
Eth Koth's not a ship Jedi.
I was thinking of Plo Koon for some reason.
But don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's double nodes are nice, especially when they're characters you have not got. So if
definitely.
The Droideka, for example, Droideka's a perfect example of a node that you farm not for Droideka. You're farming for the ship, but you end up with a 7-star Droideka to boot anyway. Because I hadn't. So I like the double nodes. So yeah, the Sith Bomber being put on a node with a character is good, and you're farming that twice. So you're.
I will. I like the Sith Bomber too. For some reason, it's really. I don't know. These new what are they? Pilotless ships.
Yeah,
I think are all really strategically important.
By the way, TIE Bomber, not Sith Bomber. Sith Bomber's different.
Yeah.
Potato.
Right, that's Marauder's ship is Sith Bomber's. Pretty bad ship. I don't use it. I don't think I've I think I'm.
It's
I don't
good
have it
with
developed.
it is good with the palpmobile. It is good with the palpmobile because you can bounce buffs back and forth and kind of increase your survivability, but that's for another stream.
Okay, shall we get into the nitty-gritty?
Let's go ahead. Let's take a break, and after we come back, why don't you pull out the paperwork that you set aside here? Because, ladies and gentlemen, when we return, we're going to ask Bus about all of what he's holding up right now. And if this part makes it into the podcast, he's holding up reams upon reams of paper. And we'll talk to him all about what the heck he has written on those. And it looks like both sides coming up right after this break.
It's both sides.
Coming up right after this break right here on the Escape Pod Spotlight.
Did you know that if you signed up to become a Patreon, you could get tons of rewards? Force Ghost Scotty could do a roster review for you. Neil Andrew Air could share Grand Arena tactics. Or Paul could even help you get maximum stars in Geonosis Territory Battle. And you even get access into the after show. Sound good? Sign up to be a Patreon today. For as little as $2 a month, you could unlock a ton of potential content and also get closer to the hosts. Head to patreon.com/the Escape Pod to sign up.
Are you a member of Team Paul or Team Neil? Maybe you prefer story time with the llama, or dabble in the buttery side of the Force with Biscuit Weasel. Or maybe you like the Escape Pod talents from Down Under like Heinzie and Scotty. No matter who you support, you can get one of my designs from the Escape Podcast merch store. Just go to escapepodcastaways.com, click on the merch link, and it will take you to the TeePublic site where you can support me, Mrs. Anthony, also known as Critty K. Also be sure to check out the Mrs. Anthony Shirts channel on the Escape Podcast's Discord server weekly to vote for my latest shirts in the Design Derby on Woot. Links for both of these are down below. Thank you for supporting the Escape Podcast.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TEPc Spotlight. This episode is all about the Kyber combatant known, or Kyber champion. What's the title?
Kyber Premier Combatant, isn't it?
Premier Kyber champion.
Premier Kyber champion.
Premier Kyber champion, as Ranger would say. It's all about the Premier Kyber champion. 3 times over. Bus 74. Welcome back, Bus.
Hey, thank you.
So when we got into once we finished the first segment, we came. You showed us the stack of papers, and what people have been seeing right over here on this side is a bunch of a close up of some of that paperwork. Now. We did. We learned a little bit that you're a programmer in your daytime job, right?
Yeah, early in my career, I was a software engineer.
Okay, so you kind of use program language in a way to dissect your GAC opponents week in and week out. Let's start with after sign up, 2 p.m. your time because you're Pacific. You open up the app.
What do you do?
What is the first thing you do once you see who your opponent is, or are you looking at all of the opponents?
Yeah, so actually, I have a different process for when during the join period ends, and then also when the defense setting begins. So the join period ends when you and then you're matched with 8 in a pool of 8.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do some research at that point, as I try to do it in the hour after the join period ends. And then I also have a process that I do during the defense setting, which is paper-based.
Okay.
Do you use any other tools beforehand as well as the paper?
Yes, I use Hotbot to look at the sort of some summary statistics of each of the 8 people who are in my pool. And I also use before Hotbot was around,
DSR bot.
I used, yes, that's right. Yeah, I used DSR bot. They have that GA command, and then they also have the profile command. It used to be called recruit, but that just the profile command I actually kind of prefer. It gives a lot of kind of overview statistics, like their mod quality, like the number of speed mods over 10, or this kind of thing. And it also tells me whoever's using it, like what fleet arena they're using, including the reinforcements. So that's useful.
Yeah.
Swuggo.gg, I think has that information now, but of course the person has to have the Swuggo.gg account. But that's also a tool that I use. Yeah,
they're a good partner with us for our GA Center show. So we definitely endorse swgoh.gg, don't we, Neil?
Oh, yes, we do. We most certainly endorse swgoh.gg.
And encourage. We do encourage not just for yourselves, but other players to get on there to take a look at GAC history. Now, there are people that are very secretive. What do you do in that situation where they don't have that swgoh.gg account?
So in that case, I can still use the DSR bot to look at, for example, what their fleet arena reinforcements are. You can't get that in game.
Mentioned, yeah.
Aside from that, really, you can get it all in game. I mean, these tools, the bots, the Discord bots, can help collect it. There's statistics that are useful to look at, whether it be in game or on swuggo.gg, such as like number of defends, number of offense wins, these kind of statistics, GA related statistics. But so I look kind of at an overview of that kind of stuff right after the matchmaking happens. And part of the reason why I analyze that group of 8, as close as I can when the matchmaking is over, as soon as I know who they are, is because rosters can change. It could be people I've had before. I've had competitors who I'm matched with, take their entire resistance faction from, gear 12 to team with relic as to get Galactic Legend Ray, or in between this period of when we were matched and then when I was actually fighting them in my GA battle, when we came up having a round together. So I was able to refer to the earlier information to look at the number of relic levels, and I could say, hey, there's a disparity here. Okay, I'm not going to stress out about this guy having all these relic resistance, because when you click join, the roster that he had didn't have any of those.
So let's talk about Hotbot for a second. When you go in there, I know that in Hotbot you can set specific, you can add custom units that you also want to take a look at. Do you have any custom units in your list that you tell it to look at?
Yes.
Who would they be?
I don't have them all memorized, but I know Vader was the last one that I added. And I can switch my screen to look it up, but you'll lose my video.
It's okay, just off the top of your head.
I've got Rex, I believe. I've got Vader. I've got CLS, Wampa. I've got I'm thinking there might be one more, but
Nest?
is Nest? I think Nest is on there anyway. I don't think you have to add her as a. I think she's like they might say it like important characters or something like that.
Do you have and this isn't to ask so we can expose your secrets to the world, but are there certain kryptonite characters? Like for me, if I see a Padme, I'm throwing something at the wall. If I see a Padme on defense, is there a certain kryptonite to you?
I'm set up where I can deal with anything that I come across. I mean, some things are harder, and I will need to prepare. I will need to adjust my strategy, more than my normal strategy would be to prepare for it. And Padme actually is, that's a tough one to handle.
So it's not just me.
No, and also actually, I think I lost one recently. It was this GAC. I lost a first battle attempt to a triumvirate trio. Someone set their triumvirate on defense, and it was a really strong triumvirate. It had relics in it, and I actually.
Is this breaking news? Are you not on track for one this?
Oh no, I just lost 20 banners from not having the first.
You still have a shot at that first spot.
Yes, I believe. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll see at the end, but so far, the last 3v3, I also made mistakes. Like I won by a considerable. I think it was like 200 banner margin or something. Like it was a considerable margin.
All right, let's get into this stuff right here. He's got the papers, Neil.
Take us through the process. Take us through the process. What do you? Because I see a column of like 1 to 20 something. What is that? Because obviously you're going from 1 to 20. So I'm assuming these are the first things that you write down. I'm assuming that this is a list of squads that you write down before you make your decision as to what's going to be offense and what's going to be defense. And
don't use this week because this will be coming out probably tonight or tomorrow. We don't want to spoil what you have for this week. So
it doesn't matter. It's all going to be record anyway. But well, maybe this is this week, but it doesn't concern me really.
Okay.
I'm just trying to grab one where I can illustrate what I was. What we're talking about. So, and they're all kind of, I thought I had one set aside here where I could refer to for you guys, but, oh, I know, I flipped it upside down. That's why I'm like, hey, I don't recognize any of these because it's double-sided and I flipped it upside down. Actually, is that what happened? Well, I don't know. Okay, but
we've made him mess up the stack.
Yes, that's basically it. Hang on a sec here. Okay, I can't find the one that I was. Oh no, wait, here we go. Okay, never mind. I got him. Okay, so I have the. I sent you guys
yes,
these are the images that are. I understand are rotating through there. So I have those
over there on there.
They're on.
Yeah. So okay, so yes, there's a numbered. This is what I do during defense setting. I will analyze my in preparation for defense setting. I'll do kind of a deep dive on my opponent's roster. So it's sort of on a faction basis. I'll go through, look at different factions, and I'll make notes about what I see. I number the notes starting at 1, and then usually it gets to about 20 or 22 or something like that. And so, for example, the first one is, I'll also note whatever feats are active for that round. So, you might see that on some of my, for example, this one. This is one. This was a fun battle. It was this GAC. It was against the fellow who ended at rank 6 last GAC. So that was fun for me. So I actually took 2 pages for him. I gave him a 2-pager instead of my usual 1. Sometimes I only do a half a page, but this was a 2-pager. So anyway, you can see on this example, I put the feat, that was active. So win GA battle with Krennic and Death Trooper in this case. So as I write each row on this left, this numbered list, I will think about my roster, holistically, and I'll think, okay, what in my roster, because of this row item, how might this influence me to either set something on defense in my roster or to save it for offense? So for example, the feat, win GA battle with Krennic and Death Trooper, I put in the O column. So I have these other 2 columns that I make, O and D, offense and defense. Mm-hmm. So I listed Thrawn, Krennic, and Death Trooper in the O column, and I put a subscript by them, and it says feat, F-E-A-T. So that refers to the feat. So that's basically the reason why I entered them there, is because there's a feat. So
so you're keeping them for offense.
No, I don't. I haven't made this decision yet.
Okay.
At this point, I haven't decided anything. I'm just analyzing. So basically, the goal is to, when my analysis is complete, I will have a list of considerations to set multiple people on offense, and also a bunch of considerations to set a bunch of people on defense. And sometimes the considerations will sort of conflict with each other. Like, for example, you brought up Padme. Whether I set her on, I know she is a problem for other people too. So, but sometimes I can use her on offense. So that's something that lately where I do have to give thought to quite often. So in this case, Padme appears both in the offense, in the offense column and the defense column.
Okay.
And so I do that on the same row. So, and you can see that I have Padme on the offense for reason 15, which is this guy who I was matched with has a strong CLS Han Chewie. And so the reason why I want to save Padme for offense is to counter that potentially. So that's the consideration
and
there.
All that.
Yeah. Now the reason why they were on defense is subscript 20. So that's that the guy I matched with had a weak triumvirate, and so there's one of the things I give thought to is how can I exploit deficiencies in my opponent's roster. So when I see someone with a weak triumvirate, in this case he's missing the Zeta on his Tria, I can do stuff that set some timeout squads that are going to be you're going to really wish that you had that triumvirate to do the annihilate or other.
But quick observation, and this is for all the people that say that we have our ear to the Grand Arena. What's the word I'm looking for? The ground when it comes to Grand Arena, and I'm going to admit your name has come up that this guy has gotten Kyber number 1 so many times, and it's because he just sandbags all these. This is proving otherwise. This is majorly proving otherwise.
Thanks, man. I think a lot of people don't understand what I do, and how would they? It's not like they're, they just see the result.
I think understand is the wrong word. I think people don't appreciate the time and the effort. Because we understand, I understand what you're doing and what you're writing down and how much you're writing down and how much analysis you're going into. I used to go into just as much with one of my alt accounts. Every single GAC, I would look at every single roster. I would look at swgoh.gg. I would look at everything to get the win. I didn't write it down,
And you
But-
streamed it too, Neil.
Yeah,
you,
and I was-
you
and
streamed these
I used
setups.
to, I used to stream my GAC my GAC preparation for my alt account. So I can, seeing what I'm seeing, I can appreciate exactly what you put into it as the reason why you get so much out of it. You know, if somebody just joins and then goes in blindly and they don't get 12-0 every single time, and then they get frustrated with themselves, I would be like, well, you need to do some analysis. You need to, you know, look at your strengths and your weaknesses and your opponent's strengths and their weaknesses, and you need to do a little bit of analysis before deciding how you're going to approach your opponent. If you go in blind, expect to get beat. Don't expect to win. And you never go in blind. You go in with your eyes like really wide open. So
Correct.
People don't. Yeah, it's not that people don't understand.
I have
what you
foreseen all possibilities.
Yeah, it's not that people.
Nothing will surprise me.
Yeah, it's just people don't appreciate the time and the effort that you put into your defense. And those that say, you know, the people that say, oh, it's specifically slim for GAC, it's like, well, no, you just haven't reached the GL meta yet. And like you said, you'd rather hoard so that you can do one of the GLs in a one-shot before doing it. You don't want to just gear 13 this character and then gear 13 that one and that one and that one. You'd rather have all of the resources and the materials, you know, in your bank, so that when you decide, right, okay, that's it, I've made the decision, you know, 6 months from now, you make the decision, I'm going slacker. And you go boom, 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 all 13 characters, gear 13, relic whatever they need to be, and you hit the event and you hit the ground running. And you know for a fact that at that point, you're not going to screw up your GP and you're not going to screw things up for GAC, because you're doing it all in one go, as opposed to drip feeding it, getting all of the relic characters, but not actually having the GL, which would totally screw you up from a matchmaking point of view.
There's a lot to what I do, you know, and so I can tell you, anyone who oversimplifies it is a mistake, you know, or if they don't know what I'm doing, they're not, you know, it's not really a matter of appreciation, but there's a lot to what I'm doing. It's not just one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm looking at one of the pictures of the sheets that you sent, and I'm looking at this Darth. Essentially, it's Darth Revan, Bastila Shan Fallen, and you have a choice between two, and you have multiple numbers next to it. Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for each, what I was saying about how for each row, I'm thinking of my whole roster and considering, because of this, you know, faction of my opponents, am I going to, you know, are there any squads of mine that I'm going to save for that would influence me to save them for defense or set them for offense? And when I do, I add a subscript that refers to the row number. So as there can be a combination, there can be multiple rows that each, for example, you know, I'm going to save a counter that can counter several squads. So that's you were talking about Darth Revan, Bastila, for example.
Yeah.
They can counter multiple teams. They're a pretty strong offensive resource. So there would be multiple subscripts after their name. So for example, on this one versus the previous Kyber rank 6 guide, it was row number 2, 7, and 8.
Okay, we're looking at the exact same one. Okay,
good. Yeah. So those are 3 reasons basically why I want to keep my Darth Revan and Bastila. And then also you can see I made a parentheses, Malik / Thrawn. So
yeah, now I'm zooming in now.
But at least Darth Revan and Bastila. So after I've compiled all of this information, what this method lets me do is, it lets me decide, it aids me to decide which squads, how I want to allocate resources for offense or defense. You know, if, you know, defense typically will come out of things that appear in my D column, but if there are, you know, if there are competing demands to have those resources saved on offense, I have all that information right here, right? So I can see, this,
I scrolled down a little bit on your opponent evaluation. JTR, terrible. Zeta lead only, and G8.
Oh yeah. Yep. You got it. Yeah. And so I underline something when it's significant. So yeah, the terrible. So part of this is also helps me retain information by writing it down. This is just kind of how I've worked through school. If I'm going through a course, I found if I'm taking notes, chances are at least I've thought about it. I wasn't spacing out on something else. So it ensures that I'm thinking about whatever the professor's talking about, and it helps me retain information. So I underscore things that are important. So yeah. So for example, because JTR was terrible, you can look at whatever I have that says 16, because 16 is basically the JTR row. So, what do I have on 16? You can see how there's a consideration to put Bossk bounty hunters on defense because of 16. The other thing.
I see it now.
Yeah. So okay. What would my rationale be there? That he can't counter it. His JTR isn't good enough to counter it. So he'd have to use something else to counter that squad, right? The Bossk bounty hunters. So it's necessary at this point. I'm looking at all counters that I might use to counter any of my opponent's potential squads and vice versa.
So what's the killing blow? What is at what point? Obviously you're in the defense setting zone. How long do you wait before you set your defense? So how long does the formulating go on for? When do you think, right, okay, this I'm gonna set the defense now? These are the ones that I'm deciding.
Well, I have been bitten by waiting too long before. I think I got everything set except one. I think the time ran out, so don't wait too long. But really, you have 24 hours. So you can. Sometimes I kind of do a quick look and then I sleep on it, or I think about it, or I come back to it, or I do a portion of the analysis. I kind of like to do the whole methodical analysis of make these numbered rows all in one sitting. But if I want to do some additional analyses, like looking up on swuggo.gg, look at their GA history, maybe I'll sleep on it and come back and do that.
So you're not really setting until morning usually.
Well, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. I mean, you get 24 hours to set defenses. I'm a little bit of a natural procrastinator, so I guess I tend to wait, and also it lets me think about it and work on it more. But if I had something, if I was busy, that during the later part of the defense setting phase, I could get it done the day before.
Excellent. So the defense is set, the clock has run out, and it's time to go kick some ass. What's your process? What are you going through? How do you go through what you go through attacking your opponent?
So obviously, I don't know what they're going to set on defense. So when the attack phase starts, that's the reveal, right, of at least the front walls, in those front two territories. You get to see what they set. So basically what I would do is the round prep notes for defense setting, can guide my decision making on what counters I'm going to use, because basically I've thought it through already. Nothing's going to, if you've done your job well, and if it's not like an auto set defense, right, nothing's going to surprise me. If there's an auto set defense, that's kind of its own animal. There's kind of extra work to do to theorycraft. How are you going to counter that? Almost its own topic. But oftentimes, I've predicted, especially if the squads are good, the defensive squads, what they might be. So basically, I'm looking up. Let's say, there's let's just pick an example. There's a Night Sister team that's in the front row. So that's or that's in the front territory. So I can refer to row entry 12 and look at whatever I've saved on offense that counters that, right? So oftentimes I'll have multiple counters, and so then it's a matter of picking, okay, which one. And this is where the tactic and different tactics. Do you want to be conservative until you expose that hidden ground back territory? Often that is a smart way to go. If I don't like taking risks. I guess I don't like taking risks. Sometimes I do anyway, especially if there's something to be learned from it. But I can regret. I have taken risks that I later regret, right?
Which territory do you go for first?
So what I think about is whatever reduces uncertainty most is what you do first. So that's
as Neil says, play with your toys.
Play with your toys.
Play with your toys.
I say no. I don't start with play with your toys. I start with do what you know. And when I say do what you know, when I say do what you know, it's use the teams that you've saved for offense, but obvious counters. So if there is a Geo team and you save your Treya, go in with your Treya. If you see Night Sisters, hit them with your Geos. If you see a Carthanasi Zalbar, hit it with your hit it with your Palpatine. The big bright, this has got, you've got this team and this is the team that's there. Obviously you hit it with this counter.
And I'm sure it refers to those little subscript numbers that you have for your offense, I'm sure.
So I can see how that would be an approach that would make sense for someone who kind of hasn't planned. But when I've planned, I things that I know work are actually not reducing uncertainty. Like that's a high probability that they will work. So for me to start by doing those actually is not the best first move. So the best first move is to do things that reduce the uncertainty. So it would be either getting to the back wall, because there's uncertainty in what is in the back wall, and that's a risk. And once you expose the back wall, you've reduced the risk. You'll be able to know what it is. You can figure out what you're going to do from there, with much more certainty. Another thing that's reducing uncertainty is doing a risky counter. So if there's a counter that might work, but there's a risk, but it's a calculated risk that it's worth taking, that might be the way I rationalize it. That might be the best first move, because you're going to see how that ends up, and based on how that ends up, you can decide other decisions and subsequent to attack phase decisions. And if this is a risky counter, presumably the reason why you do it first is if it influences how your subsequent decision making would go.
So kind of like the opposite of do what you know. Reduce the risk first. So that you can get that team and that team and that team. So don't go for them first. Go for the other ones, because you already know that you can take out those three teams.
Correct. Yeah. So another thing is when you're selecting attack teams is I mentioned when we were Discording this concept that I call versatility. So selecting a squad that is the least versatile is all else being equal, it's the right move over selecting one that's more versatile when there's more risk, like you don't know what the back wall is going to be. And what my definition of versatility is how many of these subscript things are there, right? So if something that you say for offense can counter 3 teams, that's a more versatile offensive resource than something like say Tria and Scion, or let's just say, for example, that's only just for countering one team. Geos is one. With high banners, I would add that. Without lots of protection loss. So that is something that I consider at my level. But before I got here, I was more focused on full clearing. Back before my roster was as good as it was. And so a lot of people, where they are in their GA, they might be more thinking about, full clearing, beating my opponent. So this concept of versatility, save your most versatile resources. Use the ones that are least versatile first. Can help you get the full clear. It improves the odds that you'll be able to full clear. So by the time
that's a top tip. That's a very, very good tip. That.
But thank you. Yeah.
For somebody just starting out, that is an excellent tip. If you've got one team and it can counter 3, and you've got a second team and it can only counter 1, well, it's like, well, then don't use the one that has the potential to counter 3 other teams. Just use that. If you've got one team and all it can do is counter 1, find the team that it can counter and use it on that. Don't use anything else on it, because if all it can do is counter one team, then you may as well just use it on that one team.
Yeah, correct. So it keeps your options open, to as much as possible. Typically once you expose that back wall, there'll be kind of a relief. Although sometimes there will still be a lot of uncertainty if you're using like a risky counter that you're not sure if it's going to work or not. And it's fine. It's a nice thing to have backup counters saved. So that I try to have backup saved for anything that's risky, especially anything. You might see in some places I have question marks. So like this might counter it. It's a question mark. So. I like to have a little extra saved on offense to counter those.
Right.
And so that you can think that, so this is what when you're allocating defense versus offense, your whole roster, you think by having all the information here, you can think about that and make the best decision on how you allocate offense versus defense.
And so I suppose that the next question would be, as you're progressing with your offense, because you have highlighted to us that you do go for the feats, when do you take into consideration? So obviously, you've explained, you've got your versatility, what squads you're going to use. If someone's got 3 counters and 4 counters and 5, you're going to save them for, for later matches over the squads that have only got counters against one team. Maybe you've got 3. How do you then take into consideration, because obviously you're doing all of the feats in order to buff up your banner score, when is it and at what point do you take into consideration, right, this is a squad that I can go for a feat on?
Typically feats will be tough to get, right? And those are the ones that are worth thinking about because they're hard to get, right? If it's like, oh, use this, super overpowered squad and win a battle, it would be it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Like, oh, I'm going to use that anyway, and that's going to win. But some of the ones, like for example, there's one in our current round using the 3 of the group selected from First Order Executioner, First Order Stormtrooper, Sith Trooper, the red Sith Trooper, and Phasma. So that's a current feat for our next. So I'll have written down I'll have that written down. So it's like kind of I can think about it, and as I'm starting my attacks, it's right on the top of the page. I can see I have resources saved for that. So I'll be looking to use those. I do start writing, how much time I have to do the feat, because sometimes that's important to consider. Is it just one round only? There's been a number of feats that are only active for 2 rounds, which is kind of weird how they have like 1 less day than the 3 rounds. It's not like 2 less days, but it's worth paying attention to these details. So I will note that in my prep notes when I've done them thoroughly. And basically, if I can get the feat and without a big banner loss, and I'll go for it. It's good to just knock it out. Then basically that's part of uncertainty is, how am I, I really want to be if I can, but I don't know how, or I don't know where. So that's part of the thing about reducing the uncertainty. Mm-hmm.
So what are your go-to undersizeds for the undersized feat then? I'm just curious because we're talking about feats. So I'm curious what your do you do solos? Do you do duos? Do you do trio? I mean, in 3v3, just going in 3v3, it gets classed as an undersized. But when you're in 5v5, it has to be less than 5. So do you go in with a solo, or do you go in with a trio, or is it back to the paper? Right, a solo is versatile against X1, this squad, and this squad, or I can use this trio, the CLS trio, for example, and it will whack these 3 5-man teams. Is that how you go through the process for, say, the undersized feats, or do you just have a couple of solo artists that are just gear 13, relic 13? Gear 13, relic 7, that you just know, right, well, there's 5 squads that I know that they can solo.
Typically, I'll be at my level of GA. I'll be looking to max the banners over the whole course of the GAC, and so you get that you get 1 banner by undersizing by 1. You get 1 banner by not losing a protection. You get 1 by not losing a health, and you get another by not getting someone killed. So when I'm going through and develop at the defense setting stage, when I'm going through and thinking about how I'm going to counter these, I'm thinking about what specific compositions I'm going to use to counter it.
So when you're going through your composite, you are also then taking into consideration undersized teams as well.
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
okay,
I'm not just saying use resistance. I'm actually thinking I'm going to use JTR, BB-8, and C3PO. I'm going to save them, for this boss squad or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious about that because we were on feats. So going for putting undersized squads in is something that you're preemptively already taking into consideration when you're thinking about what you're going to take into offense.
Yeah, undersizing, it comes hand in hand with getting the most banners you can, to an extent where I finished that feat super early. Like I don't even think about it. Like I don't know. I guess I'll kind of track my progress, but something like that, I don't need to even write down, or I don't need to alter my process.
Okay.
For that specific feat. Usually that feat spans, pretty long time period too, right? Like maybe 3 rounds or 6 rounds, I think is how those undersized feats work.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to learn your kung fu, what would be the first step that you would recommend?
I treat it like a sport, and take it seriously. Try to improve.
We treat GAC like a sport too. We do a show.
We treat you like we do a sports center-esque show called GA Center.
Nice.
Which we do every week. We have 59 competitors spread across 5 divisions, and we take their all we do is look at stats. Week in, week out, it's just stats. What the total banners is, what the total wins are, what their round wins are. Did they go 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, 0-3? Did they score?
I'm gonna have to catch some of those. It sounds fun. I think I just saw some of your guys GA Center.
Yeah, and then we do round wins. So
you guys are having fun with it.
Oh God, yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot of fun.
I like that.
A lot of fun with it. How many holds does a person get? How many loses? On their way to finishing the week and things like that. So it's definitely something that we enjoy. So but we know what you mean when you say take it like a sport.
Okay, but back to that, what I was trying to get at with taking it like a sport is don't just do the same thing, and don't just, if you try to learn from your mistakes, right? Like how, let's say a football team, like after their coach would have a discussion, and they'd talk about what went well and what didn't and how to do better, and they'd practice, right? And they would be working on getting better. So it's an iterative learning is what I'd recommend. Like, don't, like, if you, and also you can do this at any time you're playing the game, like in a territory war, you could try a counter. It's like, oh, this failed. That's like, why did it fail?
That today, somebody
Right.
put a Mon Mothma wall.
Ooh, fun. That sounds fun.
I have heard the Mon Mothmas can be countered with a Nutini bomb, though.
They could be countered with a Nutini
bomb. All right, I got one of those.
JKR, very easily JKR. They could be Tread. Feel free to write those down.
Nice.
We did an Emphis Nest Kira lead, and we took down Mon Mothma.
Cool. Wow, that's all right. That's pretty easy. I mean, like Geos have some similarity to Mon. We're kind of on a tangent here, but it's Spy's big hit prevents Nest from soloing Geos. Comes to mind, but Mon Mothma doesn't have that equivalent. No equivalent to Spy's big hit.
No,
depends on
which is why the ET bomb, the Utini bomb is so ingenious, and I can't wait to try. I've got an Utini bomb on my main account, and I'm just dying to try it on. I can't wait for 5v5 to come back and someone to put Mon Mothma on defense so that I could try an Utini bomb, because I want to see how effective it is.
I always just get so much joy whenever I can use my Utinis.
Oh god, the Utini bomb is the best.
I can't really explain why. It's just fun.
It's so satisfying. It's exciting to just watch them go pop, 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 pop. It's such a joy to behold. It really is.
It's the exact same reason I love bringing my bugs in against Night Sisters. I'll tell you that right now.
So what were we talking about? How to advise someone to get better.
How to learn your kung fu.
Learn from your mistakes, right? Okay, so let's say even you counter a team and you beat it, but it was close, right? Let's say someone got on your team, like their health got way down, like it was a tough call. Like, think about why that happened, or think about what's happening. What went well, what didn't went well, and then how you can make it better. Like, okay, maybe I need to pump this guy's health, remod him for a little more survivability, right? He potentially, if I'm going to do this counter, I want to make it more reliable. It's kind of a wishy-washy counter, right? This guy's health got way down, like when I was doing a territory war and I tried it, so maybe I need to gear this guy up. He's basically the weak link on the squad, right? And so take feedback like that to make improvements. Right, so it's kind of the self-assessment of what's not working right, and trying new things helps too, because that's how you learn. So, that's a comment I made earlier was sometimes I take more risk than is best. For my GA score, I'm more inclined to take a risk like that if I can learn something new from it. I find.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. There's a lot to it, right? I mean,
there's a lot to it.
Learning your counters, developing your roster, and then there's kind of the GA strategy.
Where would you say is the best place to get the most successful amount of counters? Because obviously you already know what you've got and you know what it can counter. Where did you learn those counters? What resource did you use to learn those counters?
So you can, chat with people in your guild. If you're connected with them on Discord, say, hey, what do you guys use to counter this? Or you can research it online. There's counter lists, there's YouTube videos. There's like an example of a counter list is there's like this 3v3 GA counter. I can't remember the link to it, but there's resources like that that are all available for people who want to learn up on it.
Excellent. This has been very, very informative, very, very awesome, very, very inspiring.
Very edifying. Very, very edifying.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Any last questions, Neil?
No, I'm just I'm just processing all of this data.
I've been taking notes over here. You saw if people were watching my little icon
I'm gonna
closely,
see if I can,
I muted and started feverishly typing some of the stuff he's been mentioning.
I'm gonna see if I can apply your method.
I don't know if we have time, but I can expand on one or two things if we have time for me to expand a little bit.
Yeah, by all means.
This is your stage.
Introduce okay. So things that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about counters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are all these notes that I'm, it's whatever's important. So every counter has limits. Usually counters have limits, okay? What are they? And when you know what they are, then you're going to look for information about the squad that you need to counter to see if if you're in the limit, right? So often it's speeds, like, a turn order. Like, for example, if I'm using resistance to counter Bosk, I want my JTR to go before Bosk gets his taunt up, his perma taunt, right? So you're looking at speeds. It's simple math. So there is math in this game, okay? Like, for example, we're talking about BB-8's unique, where he gives 8% turn meter to droid allies, including himself for each droid ally. So, I might make an assumption there, like, okay, well, this is 3v3. It's easy. Like, okay, there's not going to be more than 2 droid allies, right? JTR and 2 droids. So there's a quick math calculation. You're looking at BB-8 speed. So you divide it by 0.84, which is, basically how you get it. What's the equivalent speed of having a 16% turn meter gain? And then, okay, is that faster than my Bosk? And then you can even formulate how, if you're setting a defensive squad, a Bosk defensive squad that you don't want this JTR to counter, you can reformulate that squad right on the fly. So, for example, do you need the plus 30 speed from Django lead, right? Or if you just set Bosk lead, is your boss going to get his taunt up before JTR goes? So that can aid in, you can tailor your defensive squad compositions, just for your opponent, such as in this example. These are all tricks, and they do take time, but you can't expect to get to the top of the global leaderboard without putting effort into it, right?
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal do not get the #1 spot tennis in the world without, playing tennis and practicing like every single day and learning what their opponents do. I mean, they don't just go to a Grand Slam tournament and not research, who are the #1 people, who am I seeded? Who is seeded? When am I going to meet them? What are they like in that round? What type of gameplay do they do on this surface? Analysis.
Taking it seriously, right? Like it's a professional sport.
Exactly.
So here's another section. This is kind of optional. This is basically an analysis of my opponent's GA history, right? So it's kind of an extra thing that I can do. Obviously, if they don't have a swuggo.gg account, you're not doing it, right? But if they do, you can potentially do that. So, for example, in this case, you can see, O and D. Okay, or sometimes I guess this is the O over here. This is the D. Sometimes I put more emphasis on one or the other. In this case, it looks like I was mostly focused on what his defensive history is. And so I'll write like a composition that I've seen him use on defense. And then for every time that I observe him using that, I'll do a check mark, like for an extra time.
One page, really quick. This one page is just one opponent?
Yes.
Wow. And that's front and back too, isn't it?
Usually on one page per opponent. So I can use a different opponent on the back page usually.
Okay.
Because hey, save a tree. Do double-sided, right? But like sometimes it's a 2-pager, right? So it could be a front and a back. But you can learn stuff if you do this, right? About your opponent. Does he does he vary things up, or does he always do the same thing? And I like to not, it's risky to assume that he's going to do the same thing, even if but you can decide, okay, maybe it's a risk worth taking. Like, I'm going to assume he's going to do it, but just be careful if you make assumptions, right? Like that, right? But if you do this analysis, you can reduce the risk, along those lines. Like, if you've seen him do the same thing, like for a really long time, he's probably just on autopilot, right?
I do admit that I will, I'll look at the defense. That's where I usually go. I don't care about what they're doing on offense, to be honest with you. Kind of like what it looks like on that, but with their defense, I'll try to post teams that they struggled with in the past.
Yeah. So that's a valid philosophy.
Yes, I'm on my way, Neil.
You could look at, hey, you could see an offense. Hey, who have they struggled with? Where have they gotten losses? And maybe I'm going to set all those for him too. Try and exploit your opponent's weaknesses, right? Take no prisoners. This is a competition,
exploit the game, right? Exploit your opponent's weaknesses.
Correct.
Mercy is for the weak.
It's a competition, right?
It was a mercy killing.
It was a mercy killing. Oh yes. Oh no. I do like those. I do like all of these extra tips. And I'm sure the people watching, if they want to learn and if they suck at GAC and want to get better at GAC, then they can definitely learn a few things from the things that you've been saying during this interview.
Any other tips for us?
Gear levels, I'm looking at those. I talked about speeds. Gear levels, I'm sometimes looking at. Occasionally, I'll look at mods. Especially if it's needs a 60 mod. Like on Grievous or on Padme. Sometimes I'll look at the mods. Like, okay, what do they have 60 primaries on this thing? Be relevant to figure out what counter I'm going to use. Zetas can be important. Okay, is he missing a leadership zeta? If so, you're not going to have that target lock preventing counterattack location in there. So you might be able to start with something like CLS or some kind of attack squad.
Yeah.
Or even like these are all ways that deficiencies, potential deficiencies in your opponent's roster that you can exploit. But if you don't notice it, you're not before you've set your defenses, you're not really setting yourself up to be able to take advantage of it extent that you could.
There we go.
Well, that was we do like our long form interviews.
We do. We do.
This is one of the best long forms that we've done. To go an hour and a half with the world #1 GAC champion. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, look for him on the holo tables. Look out for him.
Look out for him on the holo tables.
Yeah. And if you ever do decide to get into the world of content creation to kind of exhibit and teach your kung fu, I certainly will definitely be pointing a lot of people your way, especially with a resume like back Kyber champion. We'll have to see.
Wish me luck.
Well, let's make an effort this week on GA Center to report on who was Division 1 Kyber champion.
Okay. We'll make an effort. We'll put a caveat in there. Who was #1 in each of the divisions?
I like that.
That you can put a face to the name.
Mm-hmm.
Who was #1?
Who was #1 in each division? They may not be a content creator or a streamer, but maybe it'd be nice to know who who's top dog in each of the divisions every single week. Well, sorry,
awesome,
every single month. Sorry, every single month.
we brainstorm on the fly, Neil.
Yes,
we
we do.
always do this.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Well, Bus, thank you very, very much, Bus 74, nonetheless. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Any parting words?
Peace out, brothers.
All right, guys. If you are watching this on the Escape Podcast itself, coming up, story time with the llama. Otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in to TEPc Spotlight. And we'll see you next time for another special. Who knows when it'll be? Who knows what it'll be about? But we certainly are going to bring you more of these, as we've gotten some great feedback on them thus far. Neil, any parting words?
No, just a wonderful interview. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Neil. Push the button.
You got it, mate. Ta-ta for now, folks.